Training camp is just about in the books, and the 2020-21 season is finally upon us. We talk wild with guest Kevin Falness and continue on the Matt Boldy cheer train with the gold medal recap. Episode 55, presented by Soda Sticks, starts now.
Pay homage to the Met Center, Metrodome, Fogarty, or your favorite former Viking. What's up, Randy Moss Mooning? With any of Soda Sticks Classics throwback tees. Looking to sip on a different flavor? Check out the McGolden Light Pond Hockey and Fishing Club merch line for that extra Minnesota flavor. Toss down that Bardown Beauties code at checkout for free shipping on all purchases at sodastick.com. Hello. What's going on, everybody? First Bardown Beauties episode of 2021, and so much freaking hockey talk to talk. I'm
Finally.
so excited, Alexis. My God. I went to the rink for the first time this week and saw the Wild guys, and I'm just inject this into my veins. This feels right. I feel alive. I don't know if it's the Zoloft or the hockey that's got me really happy these days.
Either way, we'll take it right at this point. We'll take whatever we can get. And a lot of our friends and coworkers went back to work this week. The Wild went back to work this week officially. Yes. I'm sure they've all been training and practicing as much as they could, but it was so fun to see on social media clips of hockey. Normally I'm just scrolling through social media. I'm like, wow, this is miserable. But this week I was like, wait a second, we get hockey. We've got training camp. My friends are all back at work. What a time. I was just so excited to see everyone having a good time this week.
What a time to be alive, and again, no discredit. We understand there's still a pandemic, but I do think everybody's taking all the precautions to get this thing going. I mean, we also had World Juniors, gold medal, Team USA, their fifth gold medal in history. They last won in 2017. So a huge victory, 2-0 over rival Team Canada, up there to the north. Matt Boldy looking fantastic, Alexis.
Chef's kiss. Oh, Matt Boldy is just everything that I was hoping that he was going to be. I mean, he has been so much fun to watch in those World Junior Championships because it was just, he does everything. I mean, he's like a tall, bigger kid, right? And you don't expect guys like that to be able to move the way that he's able to move.
I was going to say, he moves so well for being a lankier, because he's lanky too. I mean, he's kind of got that tall, awkward body, but he moves so fluid.
He moves great. He's got a great net front presence. I can tell he's got a good hockey IQ as well. I mean, you can just tell he knows what's going on at all times.
There's a good vision.
Yes. And I'm sure everyone is hyped up about all the goals he scored during the World Junior Championships, which is something that we should be excited about. But the best moment to me of his of that entire week was in the, I think it was the semifinal game. Yep. No, against Finland.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. When he went down to block a shot right before the end of the game. And I was like, that to me is just, that's
securing
what I want
the
in a
game
player.
For them. They won 4-3. They narrowly beat Finland to go to the championship against Canada. So yeah, I mean, that was everything. That's a player right there.
And he didn't even think twice about it. I mean, I saw it in real time and I was like, wow, what a selfless play. And then they replayed it. And I saw as soon as the guy at the point got the puck on his stick, Matt Boldy was dropping down to block that shot. Didn't think twice about it, got ready to take one for the team. And you could even tell, my dad and I were talking after the block. He's like, look at the way his teammates, when they congratulated him, like they just scored a goal. Everyone understood how big that block was. And you need guys who can score on a team, but you also need guys who can do that. And Matt Boldy, from what I've seen of him, is doing all of it. So I am very excited to see him in a Wild uniform someday because from what I saw, like I said, chef's kiss.
Exactly. Looking forward to that day. He'll return to Boston College. We'll see what decision he makes about his future. But I mean, he has time to continue to grow. He struggled his freshman year at Boston College, which is why a lot of Wild fans kind of got down on him right out the gate. Unfairly, right? He's still a kid and he's still trying to figure out this whole dynamic. So I'm excited to see how it all translates into the NHL, because that's the biggest question. One thing that I have seen translate into the NHL, Kirill Kaprizov, who looks like everything. Cam Talbot said it best this week. He comes as advertised. I went into camp knowing I'm excited to see him in real life. I have been dazzled more than I even expected. I know I can be a bit of a cynic and a critic sometimes, but I knew he was going to be good. I just think he's even better than what we thought, you guys. And I'm not saying that even lightly. I'm eager to see what he does against an NHL defense, but he's also doing these things against Ryan Suter and Jared Spurgeon, one of the best pairs in the league. So he has that capability and he's trying things that you've never seen a Wild player try. Kevin Fiala has been phenomenal and has lifted that offense to a new level. But Kaprizov is going to take it even further because he has this creative nature. And it's funny, we asked him about that during one of his media avails, and via a translator, he said, I just kind of try it and it usually tends to work out. And so it's kind of one of those things.
Love that.
Yeah. Like it's just a great, and he's got a smile, like he's having fun out there, which I know it sounds so cliche and so trite, but I think when you're having fun, you're better. You can find a lot more success. And he certainly has proven that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to see him in person yet, like you have, Jesse, but I have been very jealous of all the videos I've seen from my friends on social media this week posting about him at training camp. And it feels so weird to me that, you guys are going to be listening to this the week of the Wild's first game. It feels so unreal to me that like in less than a week, we're going to see Kaprizov in a Minnesota Wild jersey. Like that blows my mind. I feel like, and we talk about this with Kevin Falness as well, coming up in our guest segment, but it feels like we've been waiting for him forever. And now it's like, he's finally here. It's like when he came to Minnesota, it was like, oh, that's a big deal. And then training camp has started. We're like, what a big deal. It's like, we're going to watch him play in a real NHL game this week. Like that is insane to me. And I am so excited. And I just want to say to people as well, there's been a lot of like weight put on his shoulders of like, we're expecting him to be this incredible thing. Right. And hopefully he will be that incredible thing. But I want to say, be patient with him. He's coming from the KHL, a different country, a different style into the NHL. So give him some time to find his game. And as great as he's looked in training camp, a real NHL game is going to be a different setting. Hopefully he finds his groove quickly because his skill is going to be crucial to the Wild having a good season this year.
I don't think you're going to feel like you need to be patient with him. I really don't. Like, I think he's that impressive from the gate. And
I want an Austin Matthews score goal game from him in game one.
I think it's possible because, you do consider the KHL, those are men. He's been playing against men in the KHL too. So, I mean, he has some of that experience, and I'm telling you guys, he's the real deal. I'm excited for everybody to have the opportunity to watch him in his first game as well, because it's been really fun to see kind of the way he moves, and he does it so effortlessly. Yes. Like, it's just so like, oh, yep. Okay. Just backhand that shot. He picks his shot and his precision, and it's great. He's been playing on here, your lines, my line heathens who love to attack me for what the lines are. We've still seen him paired with Nick Beaustead as your number one center opposite Zach Parise. I don't hate it. I haven't seen him with Kevin Fiala yet, and that could still happen. Again, we're recording this on Friday, so that's the lines as of Friday heading into that first scrimmage. Maybe they switch that up because we're still waiting for Marco Rossi to show up. Yep. He has been in quarantine. They're expecting to see him on Saturday or Sunday, but then also I'd like to see him with Kevin Fiala. I'd like to see Kaprizov and Fiala do something. I would love to see one great line. Like, let's see one super awesome line. I don't give a shit about the rest of them. Like, give me one.
Can I ask a question just because you're actually there? Is Fiala and Kaprizov actually like the same type of player? Like, would you actually want the same player on the same line? Because they're both kind of like a sharpshooters, able to good handles and everything. Whereas like Zach Parise is more of like the dirty in the net kind of
around
guy.
the crease at the door.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
They're different enough. I just think you'd move the puck so much quicker, because that's kind of the toughest thing. And no discredit to Zach or Bukestad. I think Bukestad, for as big as he is, moves fairly quick, and Zach is fairly quick as well. But you can't find a guy that keeps up with Kaprizov between the hands and the actual speed. And Fiala, I think, is a little bit more on his level, which is why I think it would be great. Plus, I mean, to combine for 30 goals each almost. I really think that could be possible, the way that they both have this vision on the ice, very similar, but again, they're very different players too. I totally see your point though. I mean, you're right, Parise, and I think Parise wants to play with Kaprizov for that reason. I think that's been very evident. Like, I think he wants to give that a shot. He could
feed him the puck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me answer your question with a question, Fred. If someone said you can have two Alex Ovechkins on a line or one Alex Ovechkin and someone else, which one are you going to go with?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, but you also want production across all your lines.
Yeah. You want each line to roll.
One top line that is just putting all your production. Everybody else.
You know what? I'm not gonna get greedy. Give me what you give me, Wild. We'll work with it. Whatever you got.
It's just that's what the Wild have been doing, and that's what kept them mediocre, right? Like, it's just kind of like, okay,
this is the year of getting out of mediocrity, Fred.
Like,
don't hold us back.
But that's really the only thing. Again, I think Kevin Fiala is looking really good. I will give credit to Jordan Greenway, who has like leaned find out a little bit. I know there was the big message to him from GM Bill Guerin this summer when they extended him and signed him for another year. And they told him, hey, this is kind of make or break for you, bud. Like it's do or die time. And I think he's taken that really, really seriously. So I'm excited to see him kind of take that to a new level. I think he'll stick with Joel Eriksson-Ek and Marcus Foligno on that third line. Your second line is looking like Nick Bonino at center with Kevin Fiala and Marcus Johansson on your wings. And then fourth line, I have no freaking idea. Whatever, we'll
maybe
see.
Me.
Maybe Alexis. Maybe me. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. You, me, and Fred?
Exactly. I mean, I think you've got Nico Sturm, who will probably slot in there as well. I mean, anything could tell. And then your pairs too. Brad Hunt, I think, will kind of be on the outs a little bit. We've seen him kind of rotating in and out. I'm excited about Callum
All
Addison.
I care is as long as he's on the power play unit. That's all I want. I want Brad Hunt power play snipes. Just give me that.
They've been working on power plays every single day, which is really, really good and really important. You've actually seen the interesting thing on the power plays is Zach Parise taking faceoffs and playing more of that role. And it's something that he had done back in college. He had played at that and he was a natural center there. And to see him kind of stepping into that, it's interesting. And I think it actually could really work too, because again, he has that grittiness. I kind of like the way that looks. What else have I seen in training camp? Cam Talbot plays a little bit like Devin Dubnyk. We
knew that. We knew that. You can say it out loud. We knew it.
I think they're just similar builds in general too, which lends itself to that style of goaltending. But we'll see.
And similar backgrounds, I feel like too, kind of like how their careers have gone and the teams they've been slotted with. Like everything seems so similar. And we'll kind of talk more in the third segment about who we're most looking forward to watching this season. But I still am a little skeptical about him. We'll see.
Right. Nope. And Kaapo Kähkönen looks awesome. I'm excited for the opportunity. He's very confident heading into it again with Alex Stalock being out, and definitely no update on him. No update on Matt Zuccarello. Zuccarello has been out on the ice skating in between group sessions. So that's promising, but that timetable hasn't been given yet. Dean hasn't given us a turn. I guess Alex Stalock has been around the team, hasn't done any on ice stuff. So we're still not even sure what it is. Yeah. So that's kind of your update from training camp. We are excited to get the season going though. We are going to have a preview of the first game, which is on January 14th, Thursday of this week. So look forward to that. We'll let you know a little bit more details on all of our social media channels, but let's go, Alexis. We're here.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe the time is already coming. Joy is returning to my body. I am ready. I have never been more ready for hockey.
Just let that light shine down. It's, the one thing I will say, so the XL had announced that only 150 fans would be allowed at the X. That obviously hasn't been announced as to what that means, whether that's going to be everyday fans. It'll probably be very similar to what the Vikings have done, where the players are allowed to bring their family or friends or whomever as that goes. Because
Operation Become Friends with a Hockey Player.
I'm excited for fans to return, not only to give me the atmosphere back, but it is cold in there. I need your body heat. I am sitting in the press box so cold trying to type my stories, and it's not great. So we look forward to getting you guys all back into the XLL. But until then, certainly follow along on Bardown Beauties and myself for all your behind the scenes stuff. We're going to come back from a break with Kevin Falness to talk more Minnesota Wild. But before we do that, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, it's producer Fred. Gentlemen, I want to take a moment and talk about your hedges, about your rough, your fairway, your greens, your front lawn, and backyard. Is it manicured enough to improve your overall curb appeal? Well, we want to introduce you to our new partner, Manscaped. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. They just released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0, waterproof for shower trimming, a premium battery and charging station. Manscaped has you and your sensitive areas covered. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use code BEAUTS at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping when you use code BEAUTS, that's BEAUTS, at checkout.
We're back. Joining us now, the voice you love with social media feet you probably hate. We've got Minnesota Wild Radio Network, Kevin Falness, joining us now. Kevin, how are you?
Thanks, I think. I'm good. We're just going through the rigmarole to get another season on the air. I'll be a lot happier when 1 or 2 games are in the rear view, but yeah, I'm excited to see some hockey again.
You know, I mean, what is the approach this year? Again, you kind of had the experience during the bubble, which was its own entity, and then now you've had the second off season, if you will, and now the regular season coming back in a completely different capacity. How do you prepare for games, and does that start tonight with the Minnesota Wild's first scrimmage?
Apparently we prepare by lots of meetings. I mean, I'm so sick of Zoom. No offense. This is a pleasurable Zoom, but I've got Zooms coming out of my ears. It's funny because I went for 10 months with virtually nothing happening. Zero. So I've gone from negative miles per hour to 100 miles per hour like that. So, which is good. I mean, I'd much rather be working than sitting around staring at the four walls of my house. But, pretty much, we're just thrown into the fire here, kind of like the players as far as getting up to game speed. That's kind of what we're doing from a broadcast standpoint. So I honestly don't 100% know what to expect until we got one game down, but I'm hoping for the best. We're in good hands, and God help us all.
I remember we were texting at one point, this was a couple months ago, and you said, I feel like I'm retired. And I feel like that kind of summed it up perfectly, that everyone, no matter what age you were, you just kind of felt like that was it. But a big part of your job is getting Bob and Tom ready for the broadcast. They're the ones that are bringing us the game. You're in there in intermission, bringing us tidbits as well. What is that like, preparing them? Because, they've been in this industry longer than all of us, and it's got to be a unique situation for them. Again, we got a little bit of it during the summer there with the playoffs and whatnot, but how have they been handling this?
Yeah, to be nice, Bob and Tom are set in their ways, if you know what I mean, which is fine and all good. I mean, let me first of all say I got nothing but respect for both of those guys. Yeah. Bob Kurtz is a radio Hall of Famer. When it comes to hockey on the radio, there is not a better voice. And not only that, he can do just about anything. I did a football game with him. He did Michigan State Gophers a number of years ago, thrown in because Mike Grimm couldn't do it. And he was phenomenal. I mean, he's just that versatile. Yeah. So when I rip on them, I do it with nothing but love and respect. But that said, they are extremely set in their ways, and one little thing goes off, and that can set them off into orbit. But God love them. We try to do everything we can to make it an experience that they enjoy, make them comfortable. And if they're comfortable, it's better for everyone involved, including the listening audience. So, that's probably a good chunk of the gig, but that's not like anything else. Unlike anything else that I've done in dealing with talent. I'm sure Fred's got the same deal dealing with you two divas.
Oh, of course.
It's never easy.
Yep, we are not We understand each other. We understand each other, Kevin.
Kevin, you have this kind of dream job as people perceive it to be, right? I mean, how did you get started in radio, and how did you find your voice covering the Minnesota Wild?
I would say if it's a dream job for anyone, I'd grab them by the shoulders and wake them up.
Don't we all say that in sports? Like, we quickly remind folks, like, you guys are dumb.
I know. I mean, I had the opportunity to work in football, and I had an opportunity to cover the Seahawks and graduate to the big boy league, I guess some would call it. But the hockey's my passion. I've always been a Minnesota guy. I've always been a hockey guy. And to be able to live and work in Minnesota, covering the National Hockey League and cover my favorite sport, in large respect, it is a dream come true. And radio has always been my passion for whatever reason it has been. So in that respect, it is a dream come true. Long story short, I kind of fell into it back in the mid-'90s. My thought was I was going to be the next Tom Bernard. I wanted to work in radio. In my mind, I saw him in my mind's eye spinning records and being a DJ and wearing a suit going to work, and that's
what kind of music are we playing? What kind of music?
I don't know. At that point in time, it was, I guess I wouldn't call it classic rock. At that time, it was just rock. And so that's what I pictured myself doing when I thought about radio. It was going to be on air, and I didn't know anything about the behind the scenes thing, but I got into radio working at KFAN as an intern. At the same time, I was going to, at the time, it's called Brown Institute. I think now it's Brown College, if it even still exists. And I found out about the behind the scenes stuff, and how I actually really had more of a passion for that than the on-air stuff. The on-air thing kind of came along as I went through my time at KFAN, working in Denver, and now with the Minnesota Wild. But yeah, my passion is actually the behind-the-scenes stuff and the imaging and the working with the audio and that stuff, even more than on-air, which has just kind of developed over time.
That's amazing, because the #MoreMe hashtag would argue that's not the case.
I hope that people know That's really tongue-in-cheek. I don't mean any of that. When I rip on Russo, I don't mean it. When I mean hashtag more me, I really don't mean it. It's just, it's fun. It's especially on social media. How anyone could take anything seriously on social media is beyond me. I mean, Facebook has just become a pit of despair. So I go into that stuff with a cesspool. I go into that thing with tongue-in-cheek, and most of the things I say are unbelievably sarcastic, especially on social media. So, poor Zack Halverson. I mean, Michas and I banty him back and forth, but it's all in fun. I actually got permission from him to do it, so I'm not a bully. We're just having a good time.
You have so many pictures of him in horrible faces.
And of Dave Schwartz or Dan Myers, or
yeah.
I think we have a couple.
Well, here's my secret. I've got my on my phones. I go to my all phone, and I got my albums, and so I've got. Well, there's my brother-in-law Jim Griefey. Hey, Audra, how you doing? I don't know if you can see that. There's. Hi, Audra. There's one of her. Mike Grimm decided, hey, you know what I should do? I should take a selfie. So I screen captured Mike Grimm just making a weird face. He took the picture. He's got no one to blame but himself, but I kept it. So, yeah, that's basically. And then when you talk about Zack Halverson, as I page through here, I've got a few of Zack Halverson, but, the real culprit here is Meat Sauce, who sends me roughly 3 dozen pictures of the guy a day because they work together. He says, here's another incriminating, like this morning he had pizza sauce on his shirt. He sends me a picture. I took a picture of it, and I go, who did it better? But here we go. Here's my Zack Halverson file. As I go.
Oh, we're
it's never
scrolling.
ending.
We're scrolling.
And one's even better than the next. See?
Wow.
Well, that's just a tip of the iceberg. So
we can't wait to get Halvey on to rebuttal and share his insight on that. I mean,
I'm sure he's loving it.
Is that kind of what you miss most? I mean, I know for myself, and I'm sure anybody that's been in our industry, yes, it's great being at the games. Yes, it's great having the team interaction, but really it's kind of the camaraderie that we've created amongst the media, right? Is that something that you really missed within the span of those 10 months that we were retired or not working?
Yeah. And I'm not comparing myself to a player. I'm not comparing what we've got to what it is in the locker room. But when you talk about guys that have stepped away from the game, it doesn't matter if it's been for 6 months, 6 years, 6 decades. They talk about missing that more than the game itself, the camaraderie in the locker room. And I think that's what we have as a group in the media. Our own little nucleus inside the radio broadcast is kind of like a locker room as well. Yeah. God love Ms. Pearson for stepping in the middle of that fray. I think we tried to keep it relatively sane in there. But we've got, I mean, I've worked with these guys. Jim Rogers, our engineer, I've worked with since the beginning of the franchise. CCO dumped them on us in the year 2000. But it stuck. It was a chemistry that worked for us and our group, and so he stayed with us the entire time. And it's just it's a family away from our family because we're stuck together for that many days and
so much. There's so much together in time, I think, right?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, I know something that led me kind of into this career that always was something I looked forward to was not just building the relationships with the people you work with, because truly we are, with each other so much of the time, whether you're traveling or whether you're working from the home base, whatever it is, you're around these people all the time at odd hours, on holidays, doing whatever it may be. But something I always looked forward to was building the relationships with the athletes. I loved that behind the scene aspect of like, hey, I can have a career in this and I can get close to these athletes and have relationships with them. And that always fascinated me. And I know that you are one of those people, since you've been doing this long enough now, that you've built some of those relationships. And one person who unfortunately is no longer on the team, but one of your hashtag friends, kissy face emoji, is Jason Zucker. What is it like, when you build those relationships, especially someone who you have such an open, on social media, when you're at the rink, whatever it may be, and then they get traded? That's one of the tougher parts, I think, of working in sports that we don't always really talk about. What is that like? And what was your thought when Jason Zucker left?
Yeah, it's different for me than other folks that cover this team by the media. I mean, I'm a wild employee. I'm not coming after him. I've got no reason to pick a fight.
You get to say nice things all the time, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And if I rip them, it's certainly not going to be in a microphone or on a blog or anything like that. For some reason, Zucker and I struck up an adversarial relationship, and I think it stemmed from he got stuck on like 4 straight road tours with me. And what that is, we used to go around to different spots around the state, and me and another front office person would be with 2 people, and we'd go to different areas of the state. We'd have 3 different legs and 2 other ones just like ours. Ours was Jason Zucker, and a lot of for whatever reason during his stint on these tours, it was me, two other front office people, Zucker and Coyle. So good cop, bad cop. Charlie Coyle could not be a nicer person. Jason Zucker says anything that he thinks. Like, you're really going to wear that? Or do you really think you need another serving of that? Whatever it might be, and we'd rip on each other about our golf games, and we'd, whatever movie choice we're picking to ride around upper state Minnesota. But yeah, mostly I feel like I've got a good relationship with these guys because I'm not coming after them. They got nothing to worry about with me, and so it's just it's a fun little thing, and most of it's just banter in the locker room. But that Zucker thing, I think he likes me, but I don't have confirmation. He's never said it to my face.
We'll get to the bottom of it.
Jason, we know you're listening. If you could let us know, that would be wonderful. If you
hashtag friends, smoochy face emoji.
And how about Mikko Koivu? I mean, I know everybody kind of has this unique relationship. You also, I saw, had a very unique relationship with the captain. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I've been with the team since 2000. I think he was drafted in 2001, made his debut in 2005. So I like to think I saw just about every game of his professional career and watched where he came from in 2005 to becoming the first full-time captain in team history in 2009, and then leaving, at the end of last season after, a pretty historic career with this Minnesota Wild organization. I got nothing but respect for the guy. But you're on the wrong end of a dumb question, and I had my share of them, no doubt about it. And I think Mikko would be the first one to tell you I've had my share of them. You get that eye.
Those eyes. I can never forget those eyes.
Burns a hole right through the back of your head. Then you feel small. And you think, maybe I shouldn't have asked the question this time. So, but no, very cool guy, and nothing but a love and admiration for the former captain of the Wild.
Any good stories, whether it's about Mikko or Jason or anything that you can share with our listening audience that maybe hasn't been put out on social media, or any good interactions that even ones maybe pre-social media, right? Because you were around with the team before Twitter was like a thing. Was there any good interactions that you recall?
The guy that I enjoyed working the most with, and for many different reasons on many different levels, and really would have nothing to do with hockey, just happens to be this is a hockey guy, but Jacques Lemaire. I don't know how anyone could have anything bad to say about Jacques Lemaire unless he benched him, Luke Parrish. But just a wonderful all-around human being. I thoroughly enjoyed my time working with him. Of course, I had respect and admiration for him before I got to know him. A Hall of Famer, won 8 Stanley Cups as a player in the National Hockey League with the Montreal Canadiens, the guys that he played with. How could you not respect him? But then he comes here. He's got absolutely no arrogance whatsoever, and he's just a fun guy to talk to. And the way he would conduct his post-games or post-skates in the morning, Bruce was like that a little bit too. And I think Bruce was a throwback to Jacques in a lot of respects, how he handled the media and how he talked about hockey just in general. But, I mean, Jacques would talk to you for an hour after. I mean, he'd have these media scrums where you wouldn't want to leave, and he wouldn't be in a hurry to leave. And it was just really it was a really cool experience. And to this day, I like to know that, I feel like I have a special bond with Jacques that was cultivated starting in 2000 that carries through to this very day.
Well, I think that, that's something to be said. You build these relationships. I know you mentioned at the very beginning of the interview, you said, you grew up a hockey fan, and getting to work in hockey in the state of hockey. I mean, a lot of that is so magical in a lot of different ways. I know something that I found to be somewhat difficult in ways, and a learning curve is when you grow up a hockey fan and then you start working in hockey, you have to learn to ride the waves of emotion while doing your job, right? You're having fun. You're excited to watch whatever you're watching, whatever you're doing, to build these relationships. How do you balance that? I mean, it's got to be, you want the team to win, but you're also there to do a job. So how do you ride those emotions and kind of get through a night of work?
And how do you avoid being cynical like myself and
like
hate the game that you used to love?
I tell you, I have an easier time doing it with the Wild than I do the Vikings. I watch the Vikings with my heart on my sleeve. I mean, I'm not going to go after the Wild on social media like I do the Vikings, because I don't have the working relationship with the Vikings, but I have a vast history with the Vikings as a fan and following that team. And they rip my heart and my guts out more often than not. And the Wild have done that from time to time too, but I think I'm on a more of an even keel after 20 years of doing this. I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows, and I've seen plenty of in between. So I don't think I get caught up in that roller coaster unless it gets into playoffs. Then it gets a little bit tougher to watch them, win, lose, or indifferent. But I think I honestly have a tougher time with other teams other than the Wild. I feel like I've kind of, kind of settled into my spot here with the Minnesota Wild.
What is your perspective of the season, the outcome, the outlook? It's a totally different season, right? It's a new division, the Honda West. They've got different teams, playing in series, and the games.
How about those start times? Bob and Tom love that, right?
Yeah. Tell us about what your approach is to this year and how you think the Wild will do.
The start times will definitely be something different, right? Because of the fact that we're back to the old days of playing Vancouver and Edmonton, and the late starts out there in the Western Conference. Well, on the Western time zone, the Pacific time zone. That said, I think Bob and Tom are kind of liking it in the fact that they only have to travel like 2 blocks. I think they can handle that, and they'll be in bed before we even wrap up the postgame show. So that part, I think I've got the 2 older gentlemen on the right wavelength. But I think that, I think everyone's got the 3 teams that we know of penciled in for the top 3 spots in the division, barring something unforeseen. And then it's going to be up to the Wild and the 3 garbage teams in California and Arizona to figure out who's going to climb into that top spot, that 4th spot, to make it into the playoffs. I don't think there's any reason to think that the Wild can't do it. They've got a solid defensive core. They've added a goaltending in Cam Talbot to shore up that area between the pipes. Now it's just a matter of generating some offense. Well, you already have Kevin Fiala, and you hope that Kaprizov is able to translate his game to North America and the National Hockey League. It's not going to be a given, but I've kind of likened the early results that we've seen at Trio Rink in St. Paul. Now let's see what happens. You get those 2 fired up. You got Zach Parise going back at it once again, and you add some these other pieces. I'm projecting Jules Eriksson for 40 goals this year, so I don't know what the problem is.
Wow, Mark, that hot take.
Wow.
Maybe not 40, but I think, there's some good things
From
trending
the third
here.
Line.
When you talk about hockey and you got a solid defensive core, and the Wild have one of the best defensive core in the league. You got Cam Talbot, who's hoping that last year wasn't a mirage and he can go back to what he did for Edmonton when he won 42 games that one year for the Edmonton Oilers. If you can get any semblance of that and just not let in the occasional softie, which our previous guy did on a 2 regular basis over the last couple of seasons, add that offensive component there, there's no reason to think this team can't finish in the top 4 in this division.
So we've had, on Sunday, the news came out that Jared Spurgeon is named the next captain of the Minnesota Wild. It's been news we were waiting on since the season ended, and Mikko went over to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then we've now had a week of training camp. You've gotten to see the team. You've gotten to see these guys. You mentioned Kaprizov. You mentioned Talbot. What is there one player or one line maybe that you're most excited to watch in this upcoming season? It's been a weird off season, so it's hard to answer this question, I know, but is anyone really exciting you so far?
Well, I mean, Kaprizov is someone we've talked about probably since Tom Reed wore skates. It feels like we've had him in our projections for that long. So certainly everybody's excited to see Kaprizov and what he can do and if it'll translate to this game. But, one guy that I think that maybe we're starting to talk about more is Nick Googstad. If he's going to start on that top line with Kaprizov and Parise, and he's looking good right now, which you haven't been able to say a lot about Bugstad over the course of the last few seasons because he's been so injured. If we can get that guy, I look at pictures of him standing next to Kaprizov and Parise. He's looking down on him. It's ridiculous. It's like Bugard talking to Cliff Ronning. I mean, the way that these guys are set up. So if you can get him in the middle, that's the one thing we've talked about. This team has really had a glaring weakness is up the middle. If you can get Bugstad to fill that role in that top line, no one would have projected that coming into camp. But I like the makeup of it early on, way early in camp to be talking about. It's not early. We're less than a week away from game number 1. But if you can get him fired up and able to get the puck to these 2 guys who definitely can do some stuff with it on their stick, I think there's some very good things that can happen with Nick Bugstad. So that and then a healthy Matt Dumba. Those are my 3 bullet points right off the top.
So I've got solid. I was just gonna say I've got a quick follow-up question to that. Then I know we've seen a lot of changes in this offseason, whether it be trades or we've had a couple injuries already. Zuccarello, Alex Stalock. Who do you think is going to be the biggest missing piece? Who are the Wild going to need to fill the biggest gap here? Granted, we might need to see how the first couple games unfold to see who we're truly missing. But which one of those pieces do you think are the Wild going to miss the most?
Yeah, I think it's a 2-way tie. Mikko Koivu, for everything he's done for this franchise. I know he was playing a limited 3rd and 4th line role, but when you needed a big face-off, Mikko Koivu was your guy. You get the leader in the locker room, wore that C for so many years. It'll be interesting to see how Jared Spurgeon fills that role, and I think he'll do a great job. No doubt about it. But I also think Eric Stahl. I mean, the guy, you know, what I liked about Eric Stahl was not only the fact that he could score a goal and fill a very valuable role on this team when called upon, but his emotion and the way he got when he scored a goal. It was so much fun to watch Eric Stahl. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I never knew anything about I never knew what Eric Stahl was like until he landed on this roster. I knew Eric Stahl, the player, and that he had scored some big goals and, you know, winning a cup with Carolina in 2006. But the passion and the emotion that this guy plays with, I think that'll definitely be missed. And he'll be missed in the locker room. But, you know, you move on, you turn the page, and here we are.
What about a guy like Luke Cunnin? Do you think that the Wild maybe, I mean, that was a big trade, and I think it'll be well for Nashville. Do you think that's another guy that they might miss? Because I think Luke was kind of starting to come into his own and really finding a groove here in Minnesota. So I know that's one player in particular that I'm kind of like, ooh, maybe this is not going to be a great
and a younger player too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look. I mean, of the 6 guys, let's say, that have moved on or were forced to move on from last season to this season, they're all great guys. Cunnin, Donato, Dubnyk, Stahl, go right down the list. These are all character individuals that you'd love to have on your roster. The unfortunate thing about Luke Cunnin is that he is a role player, which is another word to say expendable. So unfortunately, Luke Cunnin goes away, but in return, you get Nick Bonino. And again, this isn't a shot at Luke Cunnin, because I do love him as a player, and I've been talking about the possibility of him having captain material in him, you know, as his career progresses. But to put Nick Bonino in this locker, on this ice with this team in this locker room, a guy who's won the Stanley Cup, who's got, you know, working knowledge with not only Dean Evison but Kevin Fiala, and now is actually centering your second line.
We're entering season 20 of the Minnesota Wild, which Jesse mentioned, I think in the last episode, that's kind of gone overlooked in the chaos of like this new season.
I forgot that that's happening. Yeah.
The team has been around for 20 years. That's a big milestone to reach. You've been there through all of this and seen so many cool things happen with this team. You've also seen some of the worst parts of these seasons as well. What are you most looking forward to in season 20? Can you give us a bit of a prediction? Are the Wild going to make the playoffs? Are they going to win a Stanley
No tiptoeing
Cup?
around it, Kevin. I want a straight answer.
Think.
How many points are they going to need to make the playoffs?
If you can say that Joel Eriksson Ek is going to score 40 goals, you can give us a hot take here.
Yeah, I can't do the math, so I don't know what the point number is for them to make the playoffs, but I will say I think they finish in the top 4 in this division. Now, I don't know if that's that bold. I'm not predicting them to win the division, but I'm predicting them to finish in the top 4, make the playoffs, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I'm expecting a big bounce back year from – not expecting that. Expecting a big bounce back year from Matt Dumba. I'm expecting – I really want to see Kaprizov light the world on fire. To be able to watch Kevin Fiala in shades of Marian Gaborik, a player that we haven't had on this franchise for many, many years, it's been so fun. And what Fiala was doing with the puck when the COVID pause came in the middle of March last year, it was so much fun. I want to see Fiala do that, and I want to see Kaprizov light it up as well. So those are my mini predictions, but bottom line, I think the Wild make the playoffs this season.
I like it. I like it. I have one final question because I do have to ask you. So I've had a lot of folks ask me, is Kaprizov the best player you've ever seen? For me, yes. In my time covering the Wild, I haven't seen a player like him. Is the comparison of him to Gaborik pretty accurate? I mean, they're different players, right, in different times and whatnot, but I mean, is he the best player since Marian Gaborik in the Minnesota Wild?
I can't say that. I don't know. All I've seen is limited action at Trier Rink in St. Paul. I've seen what he did in the KHL on YouTube, but I don't know how to compare the KHL to what he's going to face starting the 14th in the National Hockey League. So way too early to say that. I'll tell you right now, Fiala is the next best thing I've seen to Gaborik in a Wild uniform, number 1 and number 2 in the 20 years of watching this team. I want to see Kaprizov not only meet Marian Gaborik, but supersede him. I want to see this to be the next big thing in Minnesota Wild history. They don't want to heap expectations on him. Bull Durham, I'm heaping my expectations on him. I want to see big things from 97.
I do too. Well, I look forward to it. Again, Minnesota Wild making the playoffs according to Kevin Falness. So at him on Twitter if you disagree with that. Certainly not with us. So, all right, Kevin, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much again for joining us. We look forward to hearing you on the airwaves for all Minnesota Wild home games. Where can people listen to you?
You can hear us on FM 100.3. KFAN is the flagship for Wild Hockey. You can also visit us at wild.com/radio to find a radio dial near you, because we have one of the biggest networks in the history of all of radio, but certainly number one in the National Hockey League.
Boom. There you go, guys. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hashtag more me.
Hashtag more Kevin.
Calling all Beauts, our Bardown Beauties Teespring line has everything to help make you an official Beaut. Whether it's waking up with a hot cup of coffee from a Bardown Beauties mug, rocking our land of 10,000 Beauts crew neck, or tossing an official logo on your water bottle, we want to make you an official part of our team. So support the Beauts with the purchase. Go buy something right now. Love you guys.
We back. Thanks again to Kevin. He's awesome. He's a great time. I enjoy hanging out with him.
Always a good time to be around Kevin.
Time.
Yeah. And to hear his voice again.
You know what, guys, too? Send him GIFs. He particularly loves GIFs. So if you guys could get on Twitter on behalf of the Bardown Beauties and send him all your favorite GIFs.
And he likes when you watch the TV broadcasts over the radio broadcast.
Yeah,
that's
all
his
of
favorite
those things.
too.
So it's a great. No, he's a beaut. We're excited to have him on the airwaves. He had talked a little bit about this. We talked a little bit about this in our first segment, but are up for debate this week. Most excited player that you are looking forward to watching on the Minnesota Wild this year? We've got Kaprizov, obviously, your unicorn that everybody loves.
We should have left him out.
We should have just
done three.
I wanted the retweets, man. Like I was like, let's get retweets here. Cam Talbot in net or Kevin Fiala, who everyone was very excited about last season. I figured toss him in there. Alexis, what do you got?
I'm embarrassed to admit how long I thought about this for last night, but I am so torn between Kaprizov and Fiala. And I know that like 90% of people were like, oh, Kaprizov, or like, obviously like that's exciting because it's new and something we've been waiting for so long. And we've seen a little snippets of him here in training camp, which is leading us to believe he is everything we hoped he was going to be. But I keep going back to Kevin Fiala, and Falness actually made a good point about this in our interview with him. But Fiala, right at the end of the season last year before the pause happened, he was on fire. He was going to have a good finish to his season. And if the Wild would have made the playoffs in the normal playoff formatting, pre-pandemic, if the Wild would have made the playoffs, I guarantee you Fiala would have been a huge part for the Wild potentially moving forward if they were able to play well in the playoffs. So I am really torn between like getting excited about watching Fiala hopefully return and exceed what he was doing at the end of last season, and getting to see Kaprizov like in a real NHL game for the first time. So what are you going to go with, Jesse? I'll go with whatever one you're not, because I know you're not going to say Talbot, are you? Or are you just going to make
I would say Talbot just to mix it up.
God.
Only because the goalie situation has sucked so tremendously, right? Like it would be nice to finally get a good tandem going in, and it's not to necessarily.
So you're more hopeful that he's going to be good rather than excited to watch.
Right.
Him. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's true. Like I'm eager to see how he does perform, and if it changes anything. And even Capo. I mean, I know we didn't list Capo as an option, but I'm excited to see his offer. We almost did. We thought about it. We thought about it for sure. I'll go with Fiala. Okay. I think it would be really cool to see him expound on what he was doing last year, like you had said. So I'll go Fiala. You go Kaprizov?
I'll go Kaprizov. Then you always give me the option to say mine first. So I have to give you the chance now. So you say Fiala. I'll go with the Kaprizov, which is what a lot of people were saying. A lot of people were saying all three, which I agree. I mean, I just think that with how weird the offseason was, kind of seeing how the Wild played against Vancouver in the pseudo playoffs that we saw, the playing round, whatever you want to call it, there's just so many questions I still have. Even returning players, I'm like, is Zach Parise going to look the same as he normally does? Is Ryan Suter going to look the same? Like, I have so many questions.
I mean, Matt Dumba too. It's a big year for him too.
Yeah.
I mean, can he come back and really explode, because he was having a tough time finding a groove last year?
I mean, that was my thing. I wanted a fourth option of like the guys who either felt slighted.
There are only three options, Fred.
I'm just saying, I'm really interested in Dumba because the threat of being traded or being left on the block for Seattle, or Jordan Greenway, who was like probably shooting in his pants about how close he is to getting off this team. Like they could both like have really, really big breakout years just because of the urgency that they need to have.
I mean, Matt Dumba's kind of always had this personality of like, he's very aware of his skill and he's excited to play and eager to play and wants to perform. But some of the stuff I saw coming out about him this week, that you guys were reporting on being at training camp, it's like, it seems like he's hit this like extra level of like wanting to prove everybody wrong. And I don't know if that's just me reading into it, hoping that's how he's going to play this season, or if he actually has had like a shift in his mindset of like, this is the year that I make my comeback. This is the year that I am fully healthy. Because I know last year, after his injury, mid-season 2 years ago, he was not the same person. And it was hard to watch him in the sense that we knew his potential and he just wasn't getting there. And so there was always this like hope that he was going to find a way to get back to that game. And he scored that big overtime goal against the Chicago Blackhawks, last February. And everyone was kind of like, oh, is this the resurgence of Matt Dumba? And he never fully got back there before the pause started. So I agree, Fred. I'm really excited to see what he does. And I do think that this is, he mentioned it in a quote this week saying that, he's been on the chopping block since he's been here. So what does he have to lose? He just has to play his game. And so there's a lot of players to be excited about for this season, which is a good thing for Wild fans.
Let's hope so. There's my cynicism coming
Don't let us down, Wild.
Let's hope so.
There it is.
Not much else to go.
I mean, Kevin said that Joel Eriksson Ek is going to have a 40-goal season. So
Kevin works for the team
in an 82-game season. Yeah, I mean, we've only got 56 games to work with here, so I don't know. We'll see.
I know, exactly. No, that's going to kind of do it for this week's episode. Again, training camp was awesome. Thanks to Kevin Falness. Thanks to Soda Stick. Thanks to Talk North. Thanks to Manscaped for keeping Fred's nether region all
Whoa. My wife might be listening to this. Whoa.
Well, she probably says
you're
thank
welcome
you
to Kelly too then. Yeah,
you're
geez,
welcome,
Fred,
Kelly.
come on.
No, thanks to you guys all for listening. Don't forget to go support us, whether it's at Soda Stick, whether it's at Teespring, whether it's just downloading, listening, subscribing, rating, all of that stuff. We're excited for year 2, especially with hockey coming back. Again, stay tuned this week for what we're going to do, something special around that first Minnesota Wild game on January 14th. So we appreciate you guys. Mwah. Have a good one. Near